I'm walking through Welford Road Cemetery in Leicester. The cemetery opened in 1849 and is now home to about 10,000 gravestones. These monuments range from the very grand to the very humble. What I'm interested in is how we can use these gravestones as sources. What can we find out by looking at them, and how can we go about interpreting the information that they give us? The most obvious type of information that gravestones present to us is the text that they contain inscribed upon them. If they present the name of a particular individual, or the date of this individual's birth or death, then potentially we have quite a valuable source for finding out important biographical details about people from the past. But it's also possible to interpret these monuments in other ways. You might consider the materials they're made from. Has expensive stone been used? Are the materials local? What might have influenced these choices? Monuments are also interesting because they can tell us about what people found important in the past. Grave markers are often richly symbolic. They can tell us about how individuals wanted to be seen by their family and friends, but also about the values which were important to society at the time. I'm now approaching what is a very grand memorial. It's a sort of white obelisk, and on the top is a very elaborately carved funerary urn over which some fabric is draped. It's something which one would imagine was quite expensive to commission back in the 19th century. Also, what's interesting about it is that it gives a lot of information about the people that this monument is commemorating. Just to read some of it to you, it says, "In loving memory of William Bunny of Middleton Scriven, Shropshire, late of Oadby, born November the 8th, 1845, died November the 9th, 1899. Now this is quite interesting to me because from this we can tell who it is that's interred in this grave, but we can also tell where he came from, when he was born, where he ended up, and when he died. Now I realise that in this cemetery there are 10,000 monuments. If you were dealing with a smaller cemetery, you could potentially find something out quite interesting by doing a survey of the text on different monuments. It would be very interesting, for example, to find out what proportion of monuments mention the place of birth of a particular person. Could that be a clue, enabling us to find out about local identity during the past? There are thousands of war memorials in Britain, and these can be very useful sources for historians too. Many of the war memorials report the names of the people who were killed during the First and Second World Wars. These can be excellent sources for beginning to study the impact of conflict on particular towns and places. But you can also think about some of the issues that I've discussed so far. Is your war memorial symbolic? Were the materials used expensive? Who was commissioned to create it? Which names are commemorated on it? Who is mentioned first? Here's another very interesting monument that I'm coming up to now. There's a sort of column, and sitting on top of it is a rather elaborate statue featuring a woman extending her hand in a very mothering way to a young boy. How might we interpret this? What does it suggest about the woman who is buried in this grave?